Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We're coming in live from the Grand Papua Hotel. This is the 6th Pacific Women Shaping Pacific Development Annual Learning Workshop. We are now going to start our afternoon skills workshop session. Thank you for everyone who's zooming in online. For participants in Goroka joining us, in Ley, in Buka, and in Wewek, thank you. So we're going to start now. My name is Gloria Nema, and I'm part of the Pacific Women Shaping Pacific Development team. I'm going to be moderating this afternoon skills workshop session. So our facilitators for today, for this afternoon, is Elsie Mongoru from Care PNG, Care International in PNG, and Dr. Barbara Pamphilon, who will be joining us online from Canberra. Elsie is here with me in the room this afternoon, and Barbara will be zooming in from Canberra. The topic for this skills workshop is family-based approaches, and we have Elsie from Care and Barbara from the University of Canberra who will be sharing different activities they've used throughout their respective programs with approach focused on families. So I am going to now hand over to Elsie to give a brief introduction of herself and the coffee industry support project. And after that, we will have Barbara, who is still trying to connect online. So while Elsie is giving an introduction, I will see to that. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Like Gloria said, my name is Elsie. I am a project manager for CISP and the Women's Economic Empowerment Programs for Care. I'm going to just give a brief overview of CISP. The Coffee Industry Support Project we've been working with coffee farmers in Eastern Islands, Chimbu, Morobe, for the last, I think, 8.5 years now. So basically looking at improving coffee farming through families. So working with farming families through their cooperatives to ensure that shared resources from coffee production is shared equally in a family and is beneficial to the family. This afternoon, we're going to talk about some of the approaches that we use, or one of the approach that we use. We use several, but we're going to talk about this one, which basically looks at how we use it to show farmers how they realize decision making and how important decision making together, and how they can communicate together to better their families. So this tool that we've used, so we adopted it in 2013 for the Coffee Industry Support Project. And Barbara will be speaking on something similar too, because the Family Farms team also have a similar tool. So we've used this tool in the Coffee Industry Support Project in our family business management training. And we've also adapted that tool into a few different projects, and a whole family business management training into a few different projects as well. So not only in coffee and in agriculture, we've also used it in agriculture with fresh produce farmers. We're using it in our health project, our Mamayo project, which is also funded by Pacific Women. And so this is I feel I wanted to share this tool because I felt it sort of brings out this important idea of making decisions together and communicating as a family unit. So I'm going to go to the PowerPoint that we've prepared this afternoon to be shared. So while waiting for the PowerPoint, I'm just going to talk a little bit about why we advocate for the idea of a family-based approach. Because, I mean, we could be working with just women alone, or with men alone, or with children alone, or with men especially, because coffee farming, especially in PNG and in the highlands of PNG, is a men's business. Man ammonium ground, so coffee emblem, something blem, em digim barret, em katim coffee diwai, it's his. But a lot of families in the communities that we work, coffee is predominantly their main source of income. So by saying that, and if coffee only belongs to the men, what about the wife and the children? And we all know that the wife and the children do put work into making coffee, into the production of coffee. So we're going to talk about this tool this afternoon that I wanted to share. We call it the in-out tree, but it's essentially at its heart, it's an analysis of the household economy. So looking at the household as an economy on its own, because we all know within a household, we do produce resources and we use resources. There's a lot of planning that goes into the production and use of resources at the household level, so it can be an economy on its own. Next slide. Okay, so I spoke a little bit about our approach and why we are working with, why we're working with families. So with the approach in CIS project, the Coffee Industry Support Project, we have in the trainings the husband and the wife. There are some instances where the wife or the mother will bring her eldest son, and sometimes this lasa come up if the husband is married to several wives, or if she's a widow, or emstalonar pla place man lusimem nem kambek lo place blemiat. There are instances where the husband will turn up with his daughter or his sister as part of his family, where maybe the wife is deceased, or there's several other reasons why maybe the woman is not available, or this kind. But we emphasize the idea of the decision maker within a family unit to be part of this training. So the person in the training should be the one that's making decisions around the use of resources and the production of goods and services within a family. So the resources that they produce. Next slide. Okay, so I'm going to just tell you a little bit about the in-out tree and how we are using it. So the in-out tree is basically, so we start off with a blank piece of paper. We give butcher paper. So you remember in the first slide we had this woman and her son and wife talking about their family tree. So they start with a blank piece of paper. They draw roots. So roots depictions or pictures of the income that they have that comes into their houses. And then branches are representations of the expenses, so money they the ways or they spend money in their home. So the during the FBMT, the farmers or the family business management training, the farmers are encouraged to set goals or visions for themselves. So these goals in this tree are represented as fruits, or you think karim kai kai, yeah? So, and then this tree is also used to illustrate the idea of generation and control of household income. Usaid sa walk lo come up in money come inside lo house, and usaid sa walk lo walking decision lo spending money. So when families are using this tool, they draw their roots. So suppose coffee is the main income, they put a big root that they label coffee, or they draw a coffee seed on it. And then if they are also selling vegetables, they have smaller roots that show vegetables. If they have another business, they show those two on their roots. And then when they do the branches, I think it's on the next slide. So that's so in their family group, so the husband and the wife sit together and they do this. A lot of times in PNG, we know that husbands and wives don't talk together about the money that they have. Or sometimes man go salim coffee and yet walking decision lo how the money is spent, and he will say probably 500 kina and bagim lo meri lo money blokai kai lo house. So things like that. So in this training, we encourage communication where they're sitting together and making those decisions together. So they're drawing roots that show show all their income. So each root for each source of income. The next slide. Okay, and then they draw branches. So branches show all their expenses. We have a lot of expenses. Most times we draw like the mainline expenses. If you're school supplies covers school fees, books, pencils, uniforms, all of that. So this is the same kind of idea. So the bigger the branch, the bigger the expense. Yeah. Okay, the next slide. I think there's one before that. No? Yeah, okay. So in this one, this is where we talk about the generation and control of income. Usait working money come up or putting work, go inside, look come up in money, now usait them control him how we'll spending money. So the families themselves will decide, okay, coffee and musait a walk lo coffee garden, and then they indicate the husband, the wife, the children, who else is doing the decisions to, producing the labor into the generating money for coffee. And then they look at their vegetable garden, or every single root that they have, they sort of put down who's actually putting the money into, the labor into generating that income. And then we ask them to decide who is making decisions around spending the money. And this can be a little bit tricky, and then it depends on how the facilitator facilitates this. Because in most cases, the wife will say, yeah, me and the man, mitla times I sit down and make him decision. But then we ask, okay, suppose you go buy one plus or spend, what will happen, without telling him? And then you start getting to the idea of, well, actually I have to ask him first, or he has to approve before I buy the saucepan. That's not saying that a lot of fathers will disapprove. A lot of fathers actually do approve of this happening, yeah? But there is some kind of understanding that, yes, she will go and buy a saucepan. If she decides to buy triple Mary Brown blouse at the market, does she need his permission? You think those kinds of things that the families need to explore together, and then to actually say, okay, maybe for the this, Papa Satoki yes nami blabai. For Kaikai Lo house, especially household food, the wife will probably make those decisions by herself. One very surprising thing that we've noticed with this is the idea of children being involved. So a lot of times they say, yes, all beginnings are contribute, lo picking coffee, also you think come out grass lo garden, they are also involved in generating the income. But when it comes to the expenses, antap lo branch, most times you see that children are absent. It's always the husband and the wife. The children don't make any decisions around spending the money. And that is also important in that if you're using children to help you to work in your coffee garden or whichever income generating activity the family is involved in, the children also has to like not have a say, but they also have needs that needs to be met with this. And if they're working in the garden, they have to be told that, okay, you helping me plant lopikim coffee, but have money, but go to school fee blow you. So that kind of reinforcement of, yes, I'm getting some benefit out of doing this work is also important. Yeah, next slide. Is there? Oh, and then after this is all done, we ask participants, I think that I spoke about this slide already. So we ask the participants to share their perceptions on what they think about this tool, what it has taught them, how they're using this tool. And in some cases, in some adaptations of this tool, we've used it in a way where the roots actually have kina value attached to it. So you know that, okay, coffee, the family is bringing in like, I don't know, 6,000 kina in the last 6 months, say, for instance. And then for vegetables, it's only like 1,200. And then you have also kina values in the branches. But for the family business management training, we don't put kina values on a tree. Next slide. Okay, these are just some of the so two of the quotes that I've got from the women who've gone through the family business management training with their husband and what they think of the family business management training. So we are getting a lot of evidence from women who are saying that they feel that their husband is helping them more in terms of working in the garden. The husband is more inclusive in how he's making decisions about the money that they work together. Naxim come inside law family. It's also, and there's also this idea that she's also helping her husband more. Like there's some instances where the wife might say, oh, coffee and something, blow you, na you yet go walk lo garden or kind of some. Now she's changing her perception around this because he's sharing a lot more of the coffee resources, so the income with her. She's helping him more to work in the garden, so they're working together a lot more. There's also evidence of women saying that the husband is taking more household responsibilities, so she can also help in the garden more because he's realizing that if they're working together within a household, they're producing more coffee. There are instances of people going from producing from 10 bags to up to about 30 bags of coffee in like 6 months to a year. So there's a lot of evidence that shows that a lot of people are actually using this as a decision-making tool as well, because they're also deciding which branches they think is not essential for their families. So when they do draw their branches out, they see that, okay, maybe we are spending too much money on customary obligations, and then they will say, okay, let's cut down on our customary obligations, or so it's a tool that we've used in several places, and we feel that it's a tool that works with a lot of families, especially in the remote areas. And then the last thing I wanted to say about this tool was, because it's very pictorial, it's easy for people who have not been to school to understand. So for our illiterate population, it's a very effective tool to use with them, so they can see what their household looks like in terms of money coming in, money going out, who puts in labor for what, and who's making the decisions and spending the money and getting the benefits from the family economy, or the money that comes into their family.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Elsie, for that very informative presentation on what the Coffee Industry Support Project at CARE International in PNG is doing. I'm just going to try and check if we have Barbara with us online.
Yes, I'm here.
How
Can you
come?
hear me?
Yes, how come we can't see you on the screen?
I don't know. It says my video's on.
Um,
Is that better? I can see me. Can you see
just
me
give it a
yet?
few minutes. I can't see you on the screen. Ah, there you are. Thank you.
Very
Okay,
good. Good to
so
see everybody.
Barbara, just to let you know, did you follow the presentation online? Were you with us throughout the presentation?
Yes, I was.
Okay, good.
And I did want to add on some things too, because we use the same tree concept. But just as I sent you the message, I can't screen share yet.
Oh,
It says the host has disabled screen sharing. So if somebody could fix that while I start to talk, because I'm just like Elise, I need to share.
yeah, yes, please. So before Elsie did her presentation, she gave us an overview of the project and what it was doing and how they were using the family, family approach within the coffee industry project. So maybe you can give an overview to our
Sure.
participants here and those who are joining us online, so they can, for
Absolutely.
those who do not understand what UC and the family farm teams is, they can get some idea around that while I work on getting your screen sharing done. Thanks, Barbara.
Thank you. Thank you. Lovely. Thank you. Well, afternoon, Olgeta, and it's lovely to be mainly a little bit more in PNG. I wish I was with you. The family farm teams work in a similar way to the work of CARE, has really focused on creating an opportunity for the senior man in the family and the senior woman in a family to understand each other's strengths, understand how together they can make a strong family team. Because as Elsie said, often men do their work, women do their work, and they're working parallel rather than together for the family to get a strong basis. So the family farm teams was developed, we began in about 2011, and it's been trialled in 5 different provinces. And from all of that work with P&G partners in the different places, we've developed 4 modules that are designed to help farming families really start. It's really to help them think about what they're doing and to start mindset change. So there's a module on being a family team. What does that mean? And a balanced family team. There's another, then just like in the care work, we share the importance of having goals. Then there's one that focuses specifically on planning your family farm, all your gardens, whatever you're doing with livestock, all of the agricultural activities. Then feeding your family farm team, which is not as much only about nutrition, it's about the value of the food we grow. The food that grows in PNG is some of the best in the world. So why is money going out to the other store-bought foods, often imported and not as good as what we grow? And finally, communication and decision-making. Exactly as Elsie showed in the care work, that communication across the whole family, it keeps that family strong and together. So all of this is to help families rethink how they have been working together to be more equitable and also more effective. So will I try to share my screen?
Yes.
Oh my goodness, I can. It's been
Perfect.
enabled.
Excellent. Thank you.
I'm so happy to see that. Okay. Now, let me just see. Can everybody see that?
Yes, we can see the, yes.
Okay. I just wanted to build on what Elsie said, just quickly to show you how we use the family tree. A lot of similarities, but we call it the family balance tree. And what you'll see on this particular drawing is that we ask them, the families we work with, to put all the work of women on one side and all the work of men on the others, or women and girls, men and boys. And so when we look at the roots, we divide the roots up. Which are the roots that women develop to bring money to the family, and the other for men. But in the center, that gray root is, what are the roots, what are the things that you always do together that builds the family? And then exactly the same as care, the same top of the tree, but also who spends the money, a similar story. However, we do a little bit of a different activity there, because we talk about the fact that we all know, as people who work on the land and farm and garden in PNG, that if there are a whole lot of things, for example, on the women's side, where they're buying all the main things for the family, they're doing all the much of the productive work, and the other side of the tree doesn't, then the tree will fall over. And so we just I just wanted to share that as something that of how we use a very similar one. And again, like care, it's all about the man and the woman talking together and learning together. So I just now will move on to the one that, the thing that I wanted to share with you today, which is one of our community our approaches. But just to summarize that, we do a lot of work that's experiential learning, exactly the same as care. We work with people, we don't tell them. So they discover the things for themselves. And it's practical activities that don't need high literacy, which we know is important. And we've tried to develop as many activities as possible that the man and woman can go back to their home, bring together the older people, bring the youth, and sit down and do them again with their family. So what I just wanted to show you now is one of the activities that we do. Of course, we ask, just like care. In fact, we don't ask, we insist that a male and a female from each family must come. It doesn't work if a woman comes and has a really big understanding and sometimes some change in mindset, and go home and try to convince the man. It doesn't work because he hasn't learned alongside her. Or the opposite, a man comes along and he doesn't bring the woman from the family. So we do really say, please, it must be for family pairs, not necessarily couples, because sometimes people are widows and things like that. So financial decision making, we focus on that in one of the modules, and I'm using this as an example to share some of the tools with you. We know that women's economic security is greater if they participate in financial decisions. And also, we know that conflict over money is a very common cause of gender-based violence. However, we also know, and we talk to farming groups about this, that shared decision-making leads to better decisions because more perspectives are included. For example, what the grandparents may talk about of something they've known from the olden days can really help a family, or a woman may have some perspective that the man just hadn't seen. And the same as with care, shared financial decisions where it's based on the family goals and their needs, it leads to stronger families and more connected families. So let me just now explain the process. So this is to look at some of the common dynamics that happen in families around financial decision making. And the idea here, the process we use, is to divide the group, like let's say we've got 10 pairs, so 20 people. We divide them, say, into 4 small groups. And then we have these drawings, and I'm going to give you a chance to think about the drawing yourself, is what we ask them to do. We'll give each group a different drawing and ask them to discuss together, what do you think's happening in this drawing, and how will that affect the family and its future? And then we ask each group to report back, to show their drawing and share what they've found. So the first part of that process is men and women, so mixed groups usually, talking together about what they see in the card. So let me just show you the first one. And I'm not going to say anything much. I'm going to just give you a little bit of time to really have a look at that and just have a think about, what do you think's happening in this family? If you were in the discussion group, what are some of the things you might notice or discuss?
Okay, so with our physical participants here, as you can see from the slideshow, Barbara has a picture up there, and she's asking, just by looking at the picture, what story does it tell you? What can you see happening here? And for our online participants, if you can see the screen that's being shared by Barbara, there's a picture there. So if you can just share what you see, what your thoughts are on the picture on our chat box online. And viewers here, if you can just write something on the sticky note and pass it over to me, then I can read some of those to Barbara so she can see. The focus for today's session is the family-based approaches, and what we'd hope for participants to take away is knowing about the importance of, shared decision making and communication in a family unit. So just tell us what your thoughts are on the picture up on the screen. We'll give 2 minutes for that, because we're running short of time a little here. I'm going to have to allow for feedback and questions after Barbara's presentation too. So, do we have any comments from the? Quickly, no.
Okay, well, maybe I'll just,
Yes, you can
because
continue.
of time, Gloria, but I'm glad that people are, sitting either at, in front of their computer, thinking through the story, or in the room, starting to think about what they see. But very often when we discuss this with people, it's pretty clear that the man is really, really shouting at the woman, and she's handing over money. But people also comment on, but look at the child, look at the child's body, and look where that little one is turning with worry towards the mother. And so they start to talk about beyond that, through talking about these cards, as people give their feedback, we can all start to see even more deep things about the picture.
Barbara, would you like me to read some of the comments from
Yes,
our viewers online?
yes,
One is
please.
saying angry father, mother handing over money, child witnessing controlling behaviors. The
Yep,
other one says man giving instructions to mom on how to use the money. So yeah, similarly to what you just
similar. Yeah.
mentioned. Yeah.
Good, good, good. And look, let's be honest. At times I've had men saying, she's done something really bad and it's her fault he's yelling. Because we're using a group process, we can then, as facilitators, say to people, what do you think about that? And the group usually respond very quickly, no, well, he's doing it wrongly. If that's, that won't help the family future. So it's not always that everyone fully agrees, but all the issues, many issues come out. Now, I'm just going to show you these others. But in this one, people often comment how well dressed the man is, and his good shoes, and the amount of money, and that the woman there is not really, we can see she's not happy, but she also doesn't look as if she's been able to spend money on just some clothes similar to his. And here's another one, which often when we do this one, everyone laughs and says, and oh, we all do this. And we do laugh. But then we notice and talk about the mother and the child working on the sewing, and then starting to use some language around, that man is stealing from his own family. So just raising some of these issues. This one's another one I'll just quickly show you, which is a different dynamic where you can see that the woman appears to be controlling the money. But one thing that I didn't notice until people in PNG pointed out to me, that the man's got white grass, he's got white hair. So maybe that's a second wife. Now, we don't have to raise these issues when we use the cards, the group will. And they'll go on and they can open up all about, well, yes, he's married a second wife and yep, he's getting more money because she's educated. But look, it wasn't a really equal decision. He's not, he's not in a good space. So it's all about, surfacing the gender issues. And then after we've done that discussion, what we then do is we finish with this particular picture, which is all about, as you can see there, two-way communication. There's clearly in this family a process and agreement about family saving, and there's communication, two-way communication, and one could be fairly sure there would be shared decision making. So I'll stop there because I know there is that time, you want to have time to discuss these further. So I'll stop sharing, Gloria, and hand back to you.
Thank you, Barbara. Thank you very much for that. We actually have a couple of interesting questions from our online participants. So I'm just going to, in the essence of time, we only have like 15 minutes for questions. So I'm going to read two of the questions, and you and Elsie can take turns in responding because it's a general question, not to anyone in particular. So it's interesting, the presentations you both did and the activities. I've actually been fortunate to be part of both organizations, with UC running the family farm teams during our research. So I understand the participatory activities and, you know, the flashcards that Barbara was sharing and what Elsie was talking about, because I worked with CARE with the Coffee Industry Support Project. And I know that both of the activities are more engaging, more participatory. So one of the questions from our online participant is, how important is the facilitator's skills to bring out the gender discussions? So maybe Elsie, you can have a go, and after that Barbara can respond to that. Thank you.
Okay, so I was saving this for like after the whole thing. I can just give a shot, you know. But since the question is been put out there, I'm just gonna say with the FBMT, the tool that we use, gender is not explicit, so we don't talk about gender. We talk about roles, we talk about responsibilities, but we've never talked about gender. So underlying this training and gender is hidden in the meaning of what we do. So we don't actually tell men that, oh, you know, now in time law, you know, women have human rights and they need to be treated a certain way and they need to be listened to and they need, you know, equal participation in decision making. That is not something that we talk about. So we talk about things like the importance of working together to support your family and to improve the family well-being and to make sure your kids are educated and to have things within the house that maybe your neighbors has, like maybe a corrugated iron roof or a water tank or things like that, that they can work together to achieve as a family unit. Not about how like we don't say gender. We don't talk about human rights. We don't talk about gender inequalities. Those things we don't say. Because it's a very participatory tool, the trainers need to be trained on how they facilitate this tool. So they're looking for cues all the time. They're listening to the meaning behind sentences or facial expressions or gestures that are used within a training, and they're picking up on cues and making sure that they're addressing those and then getting the message across in a way that it's not threatening and the man does not feel that his power is being questioned, or the woman does not feel like, okay, when I go home I'm going to get bashed if I say something like this in a training. So the skill of the trainer is very, very important. So we have some really, really good, I mean, I don't do this training. So there are people in the field teams who are really, really good at picking up these cues and actually facilitating this process of discussion and learning and communications between husband and the wife.
Thank you, Elsie. Elsie touched on a really important aspect there. So the gender messages in FBMT are sort of hidden in the trainings that are delivered, and it's really important that the trainers themselves or the officers delivering or implementing these trainings have to be trained before, and you know, things like observation skills and how you react to the different kind of, you know, slangs used in languages in the different settings or the different contexts. They're also very important, and these are some of the skills that are you know, that the trainers take on board before actually implementing the project. So thank you. Barbara, would you like to say anything on that?
Yes, we use a very, very similar approach. Gender is never mentioned. We talk about building the strengths of the family and acknowledging and understanding what are the strengths in the family that we can keep building on. And from that, and all of the activities are to improve people's livelihoods and their long-term well-being. So it is very much the same. And I do want to say that CARE developed their program at a similar time to us, and we got to the same place. We didn't collaborate. So we did know of each other's work. I knew that was, that was happening in care, and I met a few people in care, but we didn't actually overlap until our programs were both designed. So I think that's an interesting point. And I agree fully about the experiential learning activities are to enable people to go through the activities together as a couple or a pair. However, and training the facilitators is really important, because one other thing we've observed that happens is some trainers have become so passionate about this approach, they start telling people in enthusiasm. And somebody said to me, "Oh, Barbara, she's gone too far. She's preaching, not teaching." So it's a really big issue. And I just add one more adaptation we do, because we work across quite a range of parts of PNG. We also, with our facilitators, talk about the cultural issues in different regions. So if they're in a coastal community or in a highlands community, or where you also talk through in a session, now what might be the cultural issues that might come up, what ones will be strengths that you can really affirm and build on, and which ones might people use as excuses for inequitable practices. So we add that as well, because we're not working in one region. Yeah.
Thank you, Barbara. I think we have time for one last question. I'm going to ask our audience here if they have a question they'd like to put forward. Otherwise, I'm going to read out something from our online participants. There's one more question here, which I think is very important. Is there evidence of reduced violence within families as a result of the family-based approaches? And what are the men saying? Have there been any responses from the men that have been part of the respective programs or the projects that you've had? Barbara, maybe I'll let you go first, and Elsie will finish off. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, we've definitely had, we consistently get reports on reduced gender violence. We actually have part of our communication module actually looks directly at anger and managing anger, and where anger comes from your thinking, not, whoa. That says it's the end. And the other thing, though, men, when men have gone through the whole training, they do really give testimonies and talk about how different they are and how different they want to be. But I could also recommend a report written by Gloria Nema, who's in the room, the Ripple Effect Report. And Gloria, you might be able to make that available to other people here, because Gloria followed up both CARE's work and our work some years later. And so that report did show that both men and women talked about change that they valued and that they had sustained. So yes, sorry, I hope I haven't taken too long.
That's all right, thank you. Elsie, you want to say something?
So we do have evidence of reduced incidences of domestic violence in our trainings. And I think it's also a complement to the way the facilitators present this tool in a community, in enabling that communication between husband and wife on a topic that in most instances might result in violence, and like money and resources and workloads and all of these things. But we, while doing the facilitation, they are able to direct the conversations in a way that this does not actually mitigate violence, and I mean, does not encourage violence when the participants go back home and say things like, oh, you shouldn't have said that, you're making me look, ose rabisman, or making me look pipi. So it's also, I mean, a testament to that. And also the way the training is done, where all of the families are there together. It's a learning and sharing environment. There's certain things that you might say in front of an audience where you probably won't say, or some things you don't need to share as a family. So that's also that. In terms of men sharing their experiences, I think from our evidence, a lot more men are saying that they have happier wives. So we all know a happy wife equals a happy home. So the wife feels more invested in her family, so she's supporting the husband more. She's, helping him in places, I mean, in things that she would never help him with, like digging drains for the coffee garden, or putting her own money into hiring laborers to work in a coffee garden and things like that. So we've seen a lot of good things come out of this.
Thank you.
Gloria, could I just add?
Yes,
Can
Barbara.
I just add one thing? We've also got evidence of reduced violence in polygamous families. So violence between first, second, or third wives has been reduced. And I think that's very, very reassuring that, that they can see themselves as a big family with 3 different wives and houses. And I really was so pleased to see that, because I think that, that is still gender-based violence, but it's often women to women, but it's based on a gender inequity. Yes, so I just wanted to share that too.
Okay, so thank you for that, Barbara. There's one more question which I think I have enough time to entertain. So both of you mentioned that, as part of the activities or the trainings that you do with the different trainings, you have like a prerequisite where you have, there has to be a man and there has to be a woman, that different gender, to participate in the trainings. So touching a bit on what Barbara said on polygamous families, we have different types of families that exist in PNG. We have from the single female or female-headed households to the typical nuclear family or the extended family in PNG, and there's other types of families. So there's a question that's asking, how do you approach these kind of situations if like participants come with saying that, oh, they don't have a wife because their spouse died, or something like that, and during the activities, do you have like mixed group participate, or do you have women and men take part in the activities that you facilitate with the trainings? I'll hand it over to Elsie.
So in terms of the participation requirement and getting, so PNG families are always, there's always someone else in the family that helps you. Even if your husband has died or your husband losing you penis, there's always someone in the family that helps you. Might be a brother, it might be his brother, an uncle, there's always someone. So we encourage you to bring that person if you're coming to the training, if you're female. If you're male, same thing. So you might have a big daughter that helps you, or maybe sister below you, kind of thing. So there's always, 2 people of different genders in a training, because there's a lot of activities that are very, looking at how gendered roles are distributed within a family unit. We also have, in terms of the second question, the second part of the question was, mixed groups. So in terms of within a training, there's a lot of activities that happen within a training. So this, what I shared was one tool that we use, one activity in a training. There's several. So based on those things, like if we were to compare women's roles to men's roles in a family unit, we might put them in women's groups, men's groups. If we wanted them to do something that encourages communication between a husband and a wife, we might put them in the tupla pairs, the Mary want them, the person that's coming to help her, or the man and the person that's coming to help him. So it's based on how the activities are designed in the book and the type of message that we want to get across.
Thank you. Barbara, over to you.
Yeah, we do a similar thing with the mixing of the activities very much. And the other thing we do in some activities, we make it very clear to the husband and wife, or the man and the woman, that in this activity you won't be asked to report back. In this activity, some of them, this is just for you. So we will maybe do an example and then leave them to talk together. And then other times we'll say, and when you finish talking, we'd like each group to give one good idea. So it varies. As far as exactly the same as Elsie said, we do the same as inviting, there are always men and women, nearly always. At the moment, we've got family farm teams running in Jawaka, where 2 widowed sisters who have only got girls are doing the training. Now, that's really rare, isn't it? But they were very, very keen. But also, so we have invited them to come. They asked if they could come. It's a very unusual dynamic. But again, those 2 women need to make sure everyone in the family is working together as a family, thinking together, understanding the money, being responsible for what they're buying, etc. But that's the first time in about 8 years that type of family has ever turned up.
Thank you for sharing that, Barbara. It's good to know that we've actually had an instance like the kind of situation that you just described, the family situation. We have 3 minutes left, so just talk survey to all our online participants and everyone present here. These resources that the training modules and the FBMT training that Elsie and Barbara was talking about can be found on their respective websites. Also, it can be accessed on the Pacific Women website. We've shared all the resources and the training modules for our partners. So if anyone is interested to know more about the trainings, then you can access it online. Any last comments from the both of you before we wrap up?
So I just have a last comment before we wrap up. So I wanted to bring focus to the idea of there's a lot of champion fathers that we meet in a community when we're running this, where they are actually really, excited about improving their family and finding a way to improve their family. And like changing this idea of men being perpetrators of violence and they're always, all no good plaman. So I would like to say that by running this training and by doing this and then bringing the focus back to their families, we've identified some really good male champions and role models within the community that actually want to support and improve their families.
Thank you, Elsie. Barbara, anything?
Thank you. Yes, can I add to that too, that part of the working in gender is both men and women need to change. Now we know that is because for women there are the many benefits and the many needs, and to bring them up, to lift them up. But one of the things when working with men that we find is really important, some men will hold back and say, but it's our culture to do this. And we then talk about PNG is a growing culture. It's a dynamic culture. It's the culture for today. And that 200 years ago, it was a different world, and we bring through the strengths from the culture. But today, We are in a new world, and we want the new men and the new women to build a stronger PNG. So it's the PNG strong culture today with the new woman and everything she can do, and the new man and everything he can do. And so that we bring culture along, but we don't fall back onto culture of 50 years ago. Yeah.
Thank you, Barbara. So that brings us to the end of our skills session. Thank you so much, Barbara, for tuning in from Canberra, and for Elsie in coming, like physically participating with us. To our participants here joining us physically in Mosby, shout out to our participants in Wewak, Buka, Goroka. Thank you for tuning in. And we hope that after this session, all of you have, at least taken something with you out of this session. The importance of, being inclusive in families and taking that family approach in everything that we're doing, because there's been so many good things that have come about from Elsie and Barbara's projects, and I can attest to that because I have been part of both projects, and I've seen many, many good impact and stories that have come from families working in both projects. So thank you very much, and we have the resources online if you want to access the resources on both CARE and UC website, as well as Pacific Women. And I'm going to end the session now. So thank you very much for both of your times. Thank you, Barbara. We'll see you.